Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, who should be the Lakers' next head coach? Plus, will shoplifting seafood hurt Jameis Winston's draft stock? And which teams can get knocked out of the NBA playoffs tonight? Pretty interesting. All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast. It starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. I'm Carrie Champion, sitting with Skip Bayless in studio. Our Stephen A. Smith is in Los Angeles. Hello, Stephen A.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good.
Way to go, Tiago Splitter.
Oh, God.
You can shut up that Stephen A. Smith. He can't make fun of you today. Way to go, my man, Tiago.
Oh, boy.
Whatever.
That's all he can give you. Muster up a whatever at 7 a.m. over there Pacific time. Look, coming up on the show today, a scandal over seafood, guys. I know it sounds simple, but look, Heisman winner Jameis Winston did not pay for his crab legs, but let's talk about the overall impact, this latest run-in. Will it impact his draft stock? Plus, we're talking about Kevin Durant. Tonight's a big night for him.
Whew, is it?
Is it ever, right? We'll see if KD can show up and take over the game. Again, a discussion coming up a little later on. But first, let's talk about it. It happened late, around 9:20 Eastern Standard Time, folks. Mike D'Antoni, no longer the head coach for the Lakers. D'Antoni resigned after the Lakers declined to pick up his option for a fourth year beyond this upcoming season. D'Antoni didn't believe he would have authority necessarily to coach, so he basically didn't want to be a lame duck. So Magic Johnson tweeted this when the news came out. Happy days are here again. Mike D'Antoni resigns as the Lakers coach. I couldn't be happier. Now listen, Magic more than likely capturing the sentiments of a lot of Laker fans. However, fellow Hall of Famer Charles Barkley took issue with what Magic had to say. Let's listen.
Magic Johnson bigger than that. Listen, Mike D'Antoni's a good coach. They didn't give him a lot to work with. But Magic Johnson, he's bigger than that. Listen, we know Phil Jackson, arguably the greatest coach ever. The Lakers don't have players. They're not a good team. Kobe Bryant is one of the 10 greatest players ever. He never going to be what he was. But they don't have good players. I'm not sure if Phil Jackson really wanted that job. The Lakers stink, and they're going to stink.
Thanks, Chuck. Whose side are you on, Skip Bayless?
Stephen A. Smith, I am 100% on Magic Johnson's side for the very reason I told you yesterday that I do not want to see Magic Johnson own the Los Angeles Clippers. His heart belongs to the Lakers. He always has and he always will bleed purple and gold. There is no Laker fan, including the one sitting next to me, who loves this team any more than Magic Johnson loves this team, the Los Angeles Lakers. And maybe you can argue that it was a little bit of knee-jerk emotion. Maybe it was almost close to don't hit sin kind of emotion from Magic. But it was raw, real emotion. And as Carrie suggests, I'm pretty sure it was shared by just about everyone else in Laker Nation. Mike D'Antoni was a nightmare. It was actually Mike Antoni because there was never any D in Lakerland while that man was running the show because he never coached any D as in defense. So Magic Johnson was just saying at least happier days are here again.
Right.
And I have absolutely no problem with that. I say tweet Magic tweet because it's not like he's bigger than that, Charles Barkley. He is that. Yep. He is the embodiment of the Lakers. So I'm 1,000% on Magic's side.
Well, I appreciate your wisdom, Skip Bayless. I know it's rare, but it comes. And the fact is that you're absolutely right. I mean, I do hear where Charles Barkley is coming from because to know Mike D'Antoni is to understand he's an incredibly nice man. He's just not somebody that makes you feel comfortable insulting him in any way because his heart, his spirit just doesn't deserve that. You know, he's just that kind of he's just that guy, kind of a classy guy. But if we're talking basketball, the man doesn't coach defense.
That's all we're doing.
Now, he may say he does. People may think he does. It's simply not true. He does not coach defense. And as a result of that, this team, as awful as they were because they were decimated by injuries, could never stop the bleeding. How many games in a row did he give up more than 100 points? how easy was it for people to score against his team? When he had Kobe Bryant, he ran the dude into the ground until the wheels ran off that last month of the previous season. I happen to believe that has something to do with that Achilles tear that ultimately Kobe suffered from. When you look at the totality of Mike D'Antoni's coaching resume, every speck of success this man has had in his coaching career was attached to Steve Nash. Without Steve Nash, there's no Mike D'Antoni. And as I reported weeks ago, when I said to everybody, he would not be back, everybody talking about what job might be saved. Well, you know what? The Lakers going to keep him on board. And I said, if that happens, Jim Buss got something to do with that because somehow, some way, he's usurped the authority of Jeannie Buss and her siblings with the Los Angeles Lakers. Thank the good Lord that didn't happen. And you move on from here. Mike D'Antoni, I know that it's not fair from this perspective that he's not Phil Jackson because nobody's Phil Jackson. But Mike D'Antoni marketed and sold himself for that Lakers job. He convinced them to pull the trigger and bring him on board. And he had no problem with anybody saying that he was a better choice for this team than Phil Jackson. So you've got to be measured against that if you've got that kind of attitude. And clearly, that wasn't the truth. And clearly, the Lakers needed to move in a different direction because the fan base were not selling out. They weren't coming to games the way they used to.
Yep.
You didn't have the sellouts that you used to have. And you can't have the Laker fan base turning against you, devoid of any hope whatsoever because of the coach leading you on the sidelines. That simply can't happen. So I have no problem with the decision. I understand it. And I understand where Charles Barkley's coming from. But Magic Johnson is the one that won 5 world championships with the Los Angeles Lakers. Magic Johnson is the one that's considered one of, if not the greatest Lakers of all time. He
Obviously.
has the right to say whatever he wants.
But help me out here. How can you see what Charles Barkley is saying? I can't see it. Help me.
Well, Charles Barkley is saying that, you know what, you're kicking the dude while he's down. At the moment he resigns, you're saying happy days are here again. It's like, damn, did you have to go there, Magic? That's all he's saying. That's all Barkley is saying. Like, did you have to go there?
Okay, but I don't think Magic meant it personally toward Mike D'Antoni. He's talking about the coach D'Antoni. Okay.
But there's no other way to take it, Skip.
Okay. Let's agree to disagree.
Let's agree
on
to
this
disagree.
One.
Now, Stephen A., look, you said we're talking basketball. It's not a personality contest. So,
well, I agree with that, but he's Magic. And I'm just saying whether it's personal or not, he got the right to say whatever he wants to say about the Los Angeles Lakers.
Look, you already know, co-sign over here. But let's talk about the future of the Los Angeles Lakers, shall we? Skip Bayless.
Let Stephen A. go.
You want him to go on this one?
I'm curious to see where
what his take is?
Yeah.
Okay, so Stephen A., it's up to, we're passing the ball to you. What do you think in terms of, and I know we have a while, but in terms of a coach for the Lakers? Throw out some names for us.
I have no clue. Who knows? Who cares? Stan Van Gundy, Jeff Van Gundy, Mike Krzyzewski, John Calipari. The list goes on and on because the Lakers are the Lakers. Plus, they're expected to have anywhere from $25 to $28 million in cap space. Plus, they could potentially have a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. I mean, every week, and Kobe Bryant's coming back. So you've got a lot of pieces to work with there if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, and you should be able to have your pick of the litter as it pertains to who could be the next head coach for you. But in the end, no matter what anybody says, what it comes down to is this. Based on what you've endured over the last couple of years, chances are you're taking a step up. Period.
Okay, step up. One of the Van Gundys, Skip Bayless.
Stephen A., you told me before the show that you would like to see a veteran coach, somebody who can gain the respect, obviously, of Kobe as well as the younger players. Lionel Hollins pops to mind because I have so much respect for that man. Now, he is old school. He is very set in his ways, and there's a chance that he and Kobe might butt heads a little bit on some things, but Lionel is a really good long-term basketball coach, and that would be a good fit. But I'm going to make a stronger case for a young coach. I'm going to go to a 41-year-old that we just saw win the national championship in college basketball. I'm going to go to a Kevin Ollie who grew up in Los Angeles, California, Crenshaw High School, which is pretty nearby Staples, right? Not too far from Staples Center. Kevin Ollie played in the NBA from 1997 to 2010, and I like the way he learned the NBA because he played for 11 different teams. He moved teams 15 times in that long career of his. So we're talking about the ultimate journeyman who got to learn a little bit from a whole lot of folks in the NBA. He gets it. In 2 years at Connecticut, replacing the great Jim Calhoun. He was assistant there for 3 under Calhoun, so he learned from a master. And then in his second year, we saw the sensational job he did with that underdog basketball team. This man is a star on the rise. He might already have arrived as a star in college basketball. I think it would be a great fit. I think he would be great with Kobe, great for Kobe, bring some young energy, but also a depth of NBA experience and knowledge. And I believe he's the obvious choice. To me,
Why?
It's got to be Kevin Ollie.
Well, let me say this to you, Skip. I love that. I don't disagree with that. I like that better than Lionel Hollins because as much as I like Lionel Hollins and as much as I want him to be a head coach in this league, what you can't do is be so stubborn that you seem averse to change. It is changing. The league is changing. It's gotten younger because owners want younger dudes they can get on the cheap as executives who want the same for coaches. Plus, they bring in that analytic stuff. And you cannot be somebody who's so averse to it that you're not willing to listen to those guys, because if they don't feel they can work for you, it's going to be a problem. So Lionel Hollins has to make sure that he eradicates that notion from his reputation.
I still respect him greatly.
So do I. So do I. And I think he should be a head coach in this league. I'm just telling you what the roadblock is. As it pertains to Ollie, here's my only issue with Kevin Ollie as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, or anywhere else for that matter. If you're talking about the possibility of Jim Calhoun coming back to UConn in the event that Ollie was to go someplace else to take a great opportunity like the Los Angeles Lakers, I have no issue. But if you're not talking about Calhoun coming back, then the problem is that you went to UConn, this man who is a champion as a head coach vouched for you, put you in that position, you swore your undying love and loyalty to UConn, and then you just up and leave. That, I don't like stuff like that. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to leave, and I understand it, business is business and the opportunity is the opportunity. But we all heard how much he loves UConn.
I agree.
You want to leave UConn for the Lakers job, then to me, do so if Calhoun, who we all know wishes he was back coaching,
he does,
comes back to UConn.
Okay, that's fair.
Set the stage, let Calhoun come back, and Ollie goes to the Lakers. If that ain't the scenario, I would much rather see Kevin Ollie remain at UConn.
I do think he would consider this his dream job, though, and this is the one where you close your eyes and plunge. I get what you're saying, but I still think he'd be a great fit.
I like you.
I do too.
Listen, Stephen A., you guys are right on point. Kevin Ollie a better option than Lionel Hollins. I get what you're saying, but Stephen A., don't you make he's stubborn. It's hard. I don't see it working with Kobe.
I'm going to buy that one, but I do love the Kevin Ollie idea, even though I know he would have to up and leave his school for this, but I think it would be worth it and justified.
All right. We've made our peace with this. Let's talk about Game 6 tonight, Clippers-Warriors. This game should be reset, I guess, a reset for both of the teams because their minds are clear. They're not focused on the scandal. And so now we are asking a couple of questions about the scandal, rather. Rochelle Sterling, Donald Sterling's estranged wife, attended Game 5, and now we're trying to figure out if that was the right decision. Listen to what Doc had to say.
I talked to her today, and, you know, she's been through as much as anyone as well. And so she just she asked if she could come. Which I thought was a very nice gesture. And she just wanted the players to know that she told me to tell them that she loved them. And so I thought, why not?
All right. Reports are saying that she's not so estranged. In fact, she was active in some of the discrimination lawsuits, an active participant.
Okay.
So I asked you this, Skip Bayless. Do you think Doc will regret supporting her?
Stephen A., I have a big problem with what Doc did on Tuesday night after the game, that he welcomed her to that Game 5 at Staples to sit up in a suite. And I'm going to guess that by now that Doc has a problem with it. And bear with me for just a moment here because I'm going to go pretty deep. But obviously Doc has a good heart, a big heart. And he, I think, let that heart get the best of him once again, in that he fell right back into the Donald Sterling trap that he and so many of his players, I believe, had fallen into all along. Maybe being naive to the background of what was going on with Donald and Shelley Sterling, and maybe looking the other way to a fault. But Doc is a good man who I think made a big mistake here. TMZ has reported that on Monday night, even though Shelley is reportedly estranged, we keep reading that from Donald, that Shelley and Donald were caught leaving a steakhouse near Staples. This is Monday night, and that the cameraman asked Donald Sterling if he's a racist, and Shelley can be heard yelling in the background, "No, of course not," and also saying that the stories were, quote unquote, not true. Now, bear with me, I'm just going to have to read this so I get it accurately. But what's more, a Los Angeles Times report published Tuesday about a 2003 court order paints an unflattering picture of Shelley Sterling. As a part of a housing discrimination lawsuit against Donald Sterling, she was accused of posing as a health inspector posing as a health inspector in her husband's rental properties and requiring an associate to record tenants' ethnicity during inspections. There were also accusations of racist language being used when dealing with the minority tenants. So, after the quotes we just saw, the sound we just heard from Doc, which was post-Game 5 on Tuesday night, another reporter took the Los Angeles Times report up to Doc as he, I'm guessing, as he left the media platform, and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And Doc read it and said, "We're going to find out new things every day." And I'm sure he was a little bit jolted by it, and I'm sure he's had time to do a little more homework here. Shelley Sterling, who issued the statement a couple days ago trying to distance herself from her husband, clearly is angling to have the team, what's the best word, awarded to her, transferred to her. I do not want to see that. And here's hoping that nobody in the NBA, no other owner, would back transferring the team to Shelley and the son-in-law you've spoken of, who is now the director of basketball operations. I don't want to see any more Sterling involved with the franchise. And from this point forward, just the way Doc chose not to talk to Donald Sterling on Monday, I would hope that he now ceases any kind of relations in talking with Shelley. I think that's over.
Well said.
Well, first things first. Let's get one thing out of the way right now. There's no way in hell that the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be owned by the Sterlings once Donald Sterling gets put out there. The NBA is not stupid. They are not going to allow somebody from the Sterling family to gain ownership of this team if they can help it. That's number one. Number two, I don't think that it's something that Doc needs to regret. Skip Bayless, Donald Sterling was the one heard on those audio tapes. What Doc Rivers is doing is what most human beings try to do. You give somebody the benefit of the doubt if there is no evidence placed before you that has guilt attached to them based on what Donald Sterling himself has attached to him. If you didn't see the woman, hear about the woman doing these things, meaning Mrs. Sterling, Donald Sterling's wife, then what are you to do? Now, That's Doc Rivers, the employee who had some, even if it's to a small degree, some kind of relationship with her simply because he saw how trifling Donald Sterling could be, and he saw his actions, but all he saw was her come to the games and support the team. There's no crime there if you're Doc Rivers in thinking, okay, fine, you can come to the game. But for us, it goes a little bit deeper, because here's the deal. And nobody comes out and says this, but it needs to be said. You've been married to this man for half a century.
Yeah.
You didn't know? Really? Stop. Let's just stop. We know better. There's no way on earth that you are married to somebody for over 50 years and don't know how they think, don't know what their core conscience is made up of. That's impossible. I mean, unless it's Lucifer himself. You understand? The ultimate chameleon. There is just simply no way that you can hide the kind of stuff that Donald Sterling was feeling for over a half a century.
Okay.
And the fact that you were his wife, enough needs to be said. Now, that don't mean you did it. But to act like, oh, my Lord, I'm shocked and appalled because I knew nothing of this kind of mentality? Now, that's,
okay, but listen to me. Read the reports. It's not about she didn't know. She shared his racist views. She was complicit in the business, the rental business.
No, but I'm not debating
that was sued. This is all in testimony. And by the way, for the record, this was out there on the weekend. I read this in several stories that she posed allegedly in the depositions. Yeah. Okay.
So do
as a housing inspector. Okay. So I'm just saying, Doc has to know more. He needs to do his homework. He needs to know what of he speaks here, because this is crucial. You don't want to. I'm saying he fell right back into the same trap that I think they all had fallen into with Donald Sterling.
Because why, Skip? Why, Skip? Because they're not paying attention, because they're doing their own thing. They're playing and coaching basketball games. They're not preoccupied with some stories about racial discrimination or some stories about racial animus towards tenants and all. They're not preoccupied. They should they have? Sure.
Yes.
But it's entirely plausible that they didn't know. That's all I'm saying. But what you did know is that once you heard the tapes from Donald Sterling, you've been married to him for 50 years. I might not have known the details as it pertains to the fact that you actually participated in contributing to some of the prejudices that may have been exercised by Donald Sterling. But I don't need to. When I know that you're married to him for 50 years, I damn well know that you have some insight into how he thinks. I don't need to know more than that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But it's not like she sat at home and wasn't sure what he was doing in his business practices. No, she was there. She worked with him.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm saying that's a detail that may have been known later. I'm simply saying you don't need to know that detail to know that this woman had some inkling into how this man thinks if you've been married to him for 50 years.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Would you now agree with me that Doc Rivers should cease communications with Shelley as well as Donald Sterling?
Well, Florida State quarterback and Heisman winner Jameis Winston was cited for walking out of a Tallahassee Publix without paying for $32 worth of crab legs. And when police went to his apartment, he said he simply forgot to pay.
I would say, come on, man. Cut this stuff out, okay? There's no need for a Heisman Trophy winner, a guy who's a two-sport All-American, to be involved in this kind of stuff. It's just inexcusable. And he needs a good kick in the rear end, and I hope Jimbo gives it to him. If this is a mistake, then that's perfectly understandable. You know, people make mistakes. Did he take it? Did he intend to pay for it? Did he forget to do it? That happens all the time. But if, in fact, he did it and tried to conceal it, that's not a mistake. That's an error.
Not his first run-in with police, all simple as it may seem, which led to an NFL scout to say this to the Bleacher Report. When I heard about this, I was stunned. He was the top overall pick next year. Was. Not anymore. This latest thing shows a continuation of bad judgment. I don't trust him, and I can tell you very few teams in the NFL will trust him. There was also an executive from the front office who says that he's basically on his way to falling out of the first round. Now, Stephen A., considering all things with Jameis Winston, let me ask you this. How will this impact his draft stock?
I have no idea, because if he has a big year next season and he doesn't get in any trouble, then I still think that he'll be picked very, very high. But at the same time, I'd like to say that this boy's beginning to get on my damn nerves. I mean, he's really starting to annoy me because, again, I side with Bill Polian when he says if it's a mistake, it happens. Sometimes you grabbing stuff, you hustling or whatever. You may have thought that you're paid or whatever, and that can happen. But you know what? The second you don't realize, you catch yourself. Whoa! Oh, here you go, and that's that. Like the police report says, he made no effort to go back to the store and pay for the food or anything of that nature. And if indeed you literally tried to just take, crab legs or whatever, that's just inexcusable. And, we were in the news for a lot of things this week with Donald Sterling and some of the things that he had to say. And we know how inexcusable and reprehensible his comments were. And that's why he's going to be bounced out of the NBA, and we're hearing LeBron James say he needs to go. But when we talk about the greatness of a LeBron James or a Dwayne Wade or a Kevin Durant and guys like that, it's not just their greatness as athletes. It's the fact that they're men enough to accept the responsibilities that come with it and to guard themselves accordingly. And I don't see that with Jameis Winston. I see a guy that likes to smile, that likes to make everybody feel good, that likes to go out there and perform, and also thinks that that smile is going to allow him to get away with stuff. I didn't think about, since, that case against him had been dropped, Skip, I never thought about it again until yesterday. And then all of a sudden, you start thinking about the kind of things that he's found, kind of situations that he's found himself in. You started wondering how truthful is he? What level of veracity should be attached to it? Now, obviously, being accused of doing harm or sexually assaulting someone is far different than something as innocuous as this. I'm not trying to compare or equate the two. What I'm trying to say to Jameis Winston is others will. They'll use it as an opportunity to judge you, to denigrate you, to demoralize you, to kick you while you're down, or to believe emphatically that you should be kicked down because you have no humility about you because how you conduct yourself. And that's what I'm concerned about here. I understand he's a young man, but the operative word is man. You're not a boy, you're not a child, and you're damn sure ain't a toddler. You're old enough to know better than finding yourself in these kinds of situations. And I think right here, right now, on national television, he needs to be put on notice that the world is going to be watching him from this day forward with a microscope. Everything he does is going to be on a microscope. Your life as you knew it is over. You are in the public eye, and you don't get to make these kind of mistakes. I'm getting sick of him. I really am.
That, my friend, was powerfully stated, and I appreciate it, and I hope Jameis Winston appreciates it. And
He's
I love your point.
for this.
Yeah, I love your point about LeBron, Kevin Durant. I've criticized them. We've all criticized them in the basketball context, but hey, they don't do this stuff. They just don't do this stuff. Off the court, they are model citizens, and I respect the heck out of that. Now, back to Carrie's original question, I was stunned by these anonymous quotes from NFL people saying that he might fall out of the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have some football issues with Jameis, a little long in the delivery, still need to see a little bit more. But hey, I'm still looking at, I don't know, top 5, maybe not top 1, but top 5, falling out of the first round. Then I sat back this morning and I started doing some homework. What's the body of work here? What's the body of incidents and evidence? Starting to grow. And I'm starting to think, okay, maybe there are some huge question marks growing in the minds of NFL people. Because just real quick, let's run back through the litany.
Sure.
Remember the BB gun fight incident in the apartment building? Kids will be kids. I'm fine with that one. Then Remember, he's at a Burger King, and he didn't buy anything, but he's filling up, I think, in little ketchup cups, soda.
Yeah.
So he was accused by a Burger King employee of stealing soda. Okay, you're a top recruit at Florida State. You feel a little entitled at the Burger King near campus, and okay, I'm fine with that. No huge deal. We all know he was investigated for alleged sexual battery. We know all about all that. We know that the state attorney announced that he would not be charged, and Stephen A. Smith and I said, enough, on to the next story. And then recently the New York Times did a piece, a compelling piece about all the errors that were made during the investigation conducted by the Tallahassee Police Department and Florida State University. And in that story, the New York Times reported that a month before the rape accusation became public, the university's victim advocate learned that a second woman had sought counseling after a sexual encounter with Mr. Winston, according to the prosecutor's office. The woman did not call it rape, did not say that. She said no crime was committed here, nothing was going to be, no charge was going to be filed. But according to Georgia Kappelman, the chief assistant state attorney, that the woman, the encounter was such a nature that she felt violated and felt that she needed to seek some type of counseling. And then this Georgia Kappelman goes on to say that it was troubling and maybe shed some light on the way Mr. Winston operates, that it may be more of a recurring problem rather than some type of misunderstanding that occurred in an isolated situation. And of course, David Cornwell, who represents Jameis, responded that comment is out of bounds. But I'm just throwing it out there to say there's a little more and a little more and a little more, and now we have a body of incidents, some minor, some not so minor. And to your point, I'm with you that, Jameis, now you're really on notice. You can't, okay, we all, everybody makes jokes about $32 versus crab legs. I don't know. Sounds like you stole them. Sounds like you felt entitled enough just to walk out with them, and I don't know. It's no small. That's no joke to me. Yeah. Given this body
You're just saying,
of work.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah.
Enough's enough.
Look. Bottom line, simple. He needs to stop BSing around and grow up. It's just that simple.
Right.
You know, I mean, he's coming across as an individual devoid of humility, particularly in the aftermath of what some people believe he may have gotten away with. Now, I'm not one of those people. I gave him the benefit of the doubt on this, and that's one of the reasons I'm ticked off.
Yeah.
Because, you sit there and you like land of second chances, benefit of the doubt. You throw out all of these things, and then somebody comes along and does something so stupid.
Yeah.
Enough's enough. And I'm glad, Skip, that you went into details with all of that stuff about what it's alleged, what's been reported, all of this, because you don't have the common sense to avoid finding yourself in compromising situations.
Yep.
This is what he did. This is what happened. This ain't the white man bringing him down. This ain't America bringing him down. This isn't somebody sitting there trying to keep down the black man. No, this is your ignorant little young behind not understanding that you have to mind your manners and guard what you do. Not only that, as young as you are, as accomplished as you are, when you conduct yourself this way, you don't know that this is setting the stage for those to follow you to be scrutinized? You have no sensitivity to that whatsoever? I mean, it's just irresponsible. You know what you have to deal with. You've got people that have your back, that support you. You have professional athletes out there telling you to keep your head up when you were going through the ordeal you were going through before the national championship game and all of that stuff.
Yep.
And this is how you thank people? By being this ignorant? It's inexcusable. I'm done. Done. I hope he knows that the microscope is on him. I hope he knows he's being watched. I hope he's uncomfortable, because he needs to be in order to fly straight and act right. Enough's enough. No more excuses.
Heisman winner and Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston, cited for not paying for some food from a Tallahassee Publix, later told police he forgot to pay, simply walked out and forgot to pay. Now there's an anonymous scout that says he continues to make bad decisions. A front office executive in the NFL says these bad decisions will eventually leave him out of the first round of the draft. So we're talking the draft. Our expert Mel Kiper joins us now at the desk. Mel, thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
So what's your take on this? Will this eventually affect Winston's draft stock?
It's disappointing. I think when you have a player who could be the #1 pick overall, forget first round, he could have been. I think it would have been the #1 pick had he been eligible right now. Now, a week from now.
Really? Wow.
And the red flags and any issues, as you were bringing up, Skip, should have been part of history now. But they're being brought back now because of this incident. It is disappointing, and it is an issue when you think about a quarterback. This isn't a wide receiver or a cornerback or a linebacker. This is the quarterback, the face of the organization, the CEO of your football team that's got to set the tone. I don't want to hear anything. You go to the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Are you hearing anything about them off the field? Of the top quarterbacks, of the elite? No. And that's what you don't want. And for Jameis, I would say, and I thought, well, after this year, he'd be ready to come into the NFL. I think he needs to be at Florida State. Go, mature, put it all together, tweak that delivery because mechanically he's got that long delivery, that baseball.
Okay.
Work on that and make sure that you have a year and a half, 2 years of nothing. It's Jameis all about doing what he needs to do, baseball field, football field, in the classroom, away from the classroom, get it all together, and as a fourth-year junior, he'll be a third-year sophomore this year, fourth-year junior, think about coming in. I would say next year, even if you're ready from a football standpoint, go another year, because I think right now we're only a year away from next year's draft. You know, maybe less than a year if they move it back up. So all of a sudden, that still could be brought up in the mix where it could impact where he goes in the draft.
Sure. Stephen A.
I totally agree with Mel. And by the way, Mel, I'm sorry I couldn't come on your radio show this week, and I was sick as a dog, my man. I really apologize, but I'll be there for you this weekend. Let me say this to you. When you're absolutely right that Jameis Winston should have to stay in school. But I'm going to tell you another reason. Because he needs to show that he deserves to be on the next level. I have to be able to trust you to be a leader for my franchise. If you really want to clean up what transpires on some of these lower levels, I think that it's incredibly imperative that the professional sports leagues really are willing to bring hammers down on dudes who are acting up prior to their arrival to an elite level. Let's put this in its proper perspective. The National Football League, we're talking about a $23 to $25 billion deal just for television alone. We ain't including the other money they've got, corporate sponsorships and what have you. The NBA, it's a multi-billion-dollar establishment. Major League Baseball, it's a multi-billion-dollar establishment. I think the professional sports leagues need to make a concerted effort to communicate and engage in dialogue with the collegiate student athlete by going to these universities and educating them about how you can compromise our brand and why we won't let you do it. So when you do X, Y, and Z, this is why we're going to be so hardcore, because this is how it affects our bottom line, and we're not going to let you affect our bottom line. A lot of times, guys, we look at these young guys and we really, really think they don't get it. But trust me, they get it. Because you could be a teenager, but you understand when somebody can mess with your pockets. You understand that pretty quickly in life. And when you understand what it's about to mess with somebody's pockets, and they explain to you how diligent they're going to be in making sure that you don't, then you let it be. Because if they mess up after that, you know they're not qualified to represent your brand. It's just that simple. It's got to get to that level. It really does.
So, Stephen A., you're okay with the idea of Jameis going back to Florida State for 2 more years?
Yeah, because I think he has to show. I think he has to. No. I don't mean it as a player. He's clearly ready and be a top-notch pick next year. But what I'm saying is, whether it was him, whether it was Johnny Manziel, or anybody who acts up. See, here's the difference. And you got people going off and all of this because they bring up Johnny Manziel. He got into a little bit of trouble, too. Okay, fine. Here's the thing, though. Johnny Manziel, with or without football, I think we've chronicled how he'll be just fine. Monetarily, quality of life, lifestyle, upbringing, environment. I think he'll be just fine. where it resonates with me, Mel Kiper, Skip Bayless. You know I love both y'all, respect you. Please understand where I'm coming from here. As a black man, we understand how difficult it is because we don't have oil money. So it's incumbent upon us to understand that we're operating behind an 8 ball financially, monetarily, for most of the time. You can't be blowing these opportunities because you don't know how to act like you have some damn sense. You can't do it. You just can't do it.
I'll just say that. You're the quarterback on a national championship team. You're the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
You are a role model. The kids look at Jameis Winston and say, boy, I aspire to be Jameis Winston.
Which is exactly what I said about Johnny a year ago.
Exactly. And you have to take that responsibility. And you're a quarterback, and you have to be totally committed to that on and off the field and handle yourself in a professional way. You want to be a professional, you have to act professionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Jameis right now is saying, that's why I say go back to Florida State. Until you are a professional on and off the field. That's what Johnny Manziel said. I became a professional. When I declared, I got to be a professional.
I got to be better.
And I want that to happen before that.
Sure.
And in Jameis's case, hey, you can make amends very quickly for this, move on. But I don't want people to just laugh this off and say, the crab legs, and it's no big deal.
I agree with that.
I don't know many people go into a store and don't have a credit card or cash or something to pay for what they bought. You go into the store to purchase items, whatever it is, and you leave when you've paid for them, and you don't leave until you have. Okay, it's not a bag of potato chips.
No,
yeah, you forgot there was a chip you ate while you were in the store, a bottle of water, and you leave. No, this was something that you take from somebody, gave it to you, packaged it, and you walked out.
Sure.
Now, you say you forgot. I don't know many people forget to go to pay when they go into a store to buy an item. So for me, just grow up, mature, whatever it takes, whatever people can give him some counseling and give him some advice. And Stephen A. did it. Listen to what Stephen A. said.
He did.
I think if he did listen to Stephen A., then he will realize this isn't just a laugh it off type of issue.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, you brought up the name, or maybe I brought him up.
I think you may have.
Manziel. Mel, I'm sure you're sick and tired of talking about Johnny Manziel, or maybe not. Now he visits the St. Louis Rams, who have the second pick, and now we read further reports that he's still in the conversation with the Houston Texans, with Jadeveon Clowney for the #1 overall. What have you, Mel Kiper, heard?
From the get-go, it was Johnny Manziel or Jadeveon Clowney. Khalil Mack was in that one mock because Clowney, there was wondering how he would fit into that scheme. It's always been Manziel or Clowney. I look at this and say, I think they are looking, if they can, to move down and get a quarterback. You can't take Manziel over Clowney if you're Houston. I don't think you can.
I don't know why not, but go ahead.
Well, I think this. If you think Manziel, who fits what Bill O'Brien has had in a quarterback? Blake Bortles does. I understand about Manziel. We talked about him as a wild card, Skip, and I get what you're saying. If you go from 1 to 6 and make that deal with Atlanta, you're going to get one of those two quarterbacks.
You will.
Okay?
Sure.
And you get him at a more palatable portion of the first round. You don't get Clowney. They're talking about playing in reverse. I said this morning, and I thought about this last night. Playing Clowney in reverse is like asking Babe Ruth or Henry Aaron to bunt. You don't do that to a great home run hitter. Say, work on your bunting. We want to see if you can bunt. We're going to work you out to see if you have any
explain
bunting
reverse.
Yeah, reverse is in coverage.
Okay,
When somebody in this league, you throw the ball so much, I want him going after the quarterback every snap.
I'm with you.
Okay, so if you're not going to do that, then move down and take a quarterback.
Sure.
I get that. And I think that's maybe where Houston is right now.
Okay, so they would wind up without Clowney or Manziel, correct?
Possibly, but there's no guarantee. We keep hearing Jacksonville won't take Manziel. That's what you hear. That doesn't mean it's true. Cleveland, if they don't...
Oh, maybe they could get...
Cleveland may pass. Oakland's not going to take him. Then you're at 6. You got Manziel or Bortles sitting there staring you in the face.
So do you think St. Louis is pure smokescreen on Johnny Manziel?
Chris Mortensen brought this up a month and a half ago, that Johnny Manziel is a possibility for the St. Louis Rams at 2. I never bought into it. I mean, Sam Bradford's got another year. He's making the big money. And you want to see, coming off an injury, what he has. Because he may still be your guy. He may not be. But you're going to find out this year one way or the other. Why not give him an opportunity with a receiver or an offensive tackle to maximize his ability and let you know next year, do you need that quarterback or don't you? To me, that's where I would go if I were the Rams. I would not take the 2nd overall pick on Johnny Manziel. I think that's a luxury pick they can't afford right now.
Okay, last quick thought before we get to Sammy Watkins.
Sure.
this is just me. If it comes down to a head coach who has never head coached a single down in the National Football League, and Bill O'Brien, who digs in and says, I cannot coach Johnny Manziel. He's too little, he's too Hollywood, he's too headstrong, whatever the reasons are. I need a prototypical pure pocket passer, Christian Hackenberg, all the way up to Tom Brady. And I'm the owner of that team. I'm saying, goodbye, Bill. I mean, that's just me. I would fire him before he started, because I would then have to choose between Bill O'Brien and Johnny Manziel. I think, again, laugh if you want. I think Johnny's going to be a star, and he was born to win Super Bowls for the Houston Texans. You couldn't make up the story. It's Hollywood, okay? So if it comes down to Johnny or Bill, I'm going Johnny. That's just me. If it really comes down philosophically to that. And Bill O'Brien's a tough guy. You know him. I know him a little bit from the show here. When he digs in, it would be his way or the highway, and maybe he should take the highway. But that's just me.
But 3 years from now, we'll know. And that's when the decision will be made. If Johnny Manziel is a great quarterback and Blake Bortles is not, and you went Blake Bortles' route, or you passed on Johnny for clowning, then they're going to have to find a quarterback one way or the other. They're going to have a quarterback, whether it's the first round, second round. They're going to identify a quarterback. They're going to take him. My point is, in 3 years, we'll know. Maybe Johnny Manziel is just average. Maybe the quarterback they get is outstanding. And, hey, everybody's not. That's not going to happen right now, Skip. That's going to be determined 3 years from now.
Okay, so if it came down to Bill or Johnny, we're saying bye-bye, Bill.
Yeah, Stephen A., you got a thought?
You want to get in on this?
I just think that Skip is crazy with that notion that, you know what, I'm firing Bill O'Brien. Because I want to make sure I take Johnny Manziel.
I think you're crazy if you take Bill over Johnny.
No. Well, then you should have waited until after the draft to hire your head coach.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't do it.
You can't hire the head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't hire the head coach
and
tell him he has this responsibility, and then strip him of the responsibility before you even give him a chance to do his job.
Stephen A., you listened to John Gruden on this show last Friday while you were on your sick bed, remember?
Yes.
He said Johnny Manziel's don't come along very often.
Let me finish. John Gruden could say whatever he wants with his Tebow-loving self. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. If John Gruden was named the head coach of the Houston Texans and the owner said, you're going to take Johnny Manziel, John Gruden would have a problem with that, because John Gruden has been hired to make that decision along with GM Rick Smith. Now, that's the issue here. And that's my point. You can't sit there and say, well, I'm going to pick a player that has never played. It's not like it's Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or somebody we're talking about. No. This dude has never played a game in the NFL, and you're saying he matters more than the new head coach
who has never coached in the NFL before.
But you hired him.
Okay. Okay, but your analogy was wrong, because if you forced John Gruden to take Clowney, and John said no, that would be what would happen.
I don't think you force anybody. I think you brought in Bill O'Brien. He's been with a great quarterback. He knows what quarterbacks need to do.
He knows what he likes.
Right, to be successful in the NFL. Christian Hackenberg's well on his way to being the #1 pick overall down the road. And he says, okay, I'm identifying that quarterback.
Right.
If he thinks it's Johnny Manziel, great. If he thinks it's Blake Bortles, great. Or if he thinks it's somebody else, great. If you're an owner, you're trusting Bill O'Brien to make that call. If in 3 years that quarterback's not panning out, you're not winning, then you make a call and you make a decision. And maybe that's
back to case in point. Remember, Jeff Fisher was not really on board with taking Vince Young. Remember that?
Right.
And so they were butting heads the whole time. And Vince, I thought, had to win in spite of a Jeff Fisher who was never sold on Vince. Well, it's the same idea, except Jeff Fisher had tenure. He had credentials in the league because he was a highly successful head coach already. What's that?
It's about the man that you hired and you put in this position. If Bill O'Brien, you would have a case against Bill O'Brien, Skip, if he were the coach of the Houston Texans the last year and a half, 2 years. But for him to be a new hire, somebody you said you're placing your faith in, along with the GM you already have there, and they make the decision that it's in the best interest of this franchise to pick somebody else, you have to flow with that. And if you're not going to flow with that, you have to do it because you're saying, I'm a businessman, I'm losing money, and I need the money this guy's going to generate for me. That's a different argument.
I just killed all of Mel's time. We can't get to Sammy Watkins.
You did.
Sorry.
That's okay.
My fault.
Yeah.
But it was good.
It's all
it was good.
Because you're in love with Manziel.
He's in love with Manziel. Okay.
Skip can't get enough to talk about Manziel.
Hey, he's going to be a star.
Skip is a huge fan of Manziel. We all know that, and we'll see.
And we will.
So is John Gruden.
Mel Kiper, you're wonderful and pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll see you sometime soon. How many days before the draft? 7? T-minus?
A week away.
Tonight, Thunder at Grizzlies, 8 Eastern. Grizzlies lead the series 3-2. Surprise, surprise, folks. This match produced 4 straight overtime games where many expected, obviously, the MVP of the league, or soon to be named MVP of the league, Kevin Durant, to close it out. The Oklahoman, however, which is a paper, had this: Mr. Unreliable. That's the headline ahead of tonight's Game 6. Stephen A., you see that headline. How big is this elimination game for Kevin Durant's legacy?
It's very big. And I hope Kevin Durant is watching. I hope he sees me face to face with what I'm about to say to him. He has to make a decision that, does he want to hoist the league MVP trophy up above his shoulders in front of a packed house inside the arena at Oklahoma City with fans roaring with approval in honor of his greatness? Or does he want to accept it at home on his couch while he's watching the playoffs? He has to make that decision. Because Memphis is trying to close the deal tonight. And he's the one guy that can stop him. And I'm not just talking about Kevin Durant's talent. I'm not just talking about his shooting ability, because Scott Brooks has been let off the hook, and he's got to step. I like Scott Brooks, but my Lord, you got to do something for this kid. More screens, more picks. Get the double team, sometime the triple teams off him. Do something for the brother. Move the basketball. Space the floor correctly. Do something. But Kevin Durant has got to be more assertive. He has combined with Russell Westbrook to shoot 31 of their last 100 shots. That's just putrid. He's too great for this. And he has to step up. It's just that simple. This is his moment, because all eyes have to be on him. Russell Westbrook can't launch 31 shots. I get that. But it's not about wins or losses, Skip. It is about Kevin Durant making sure that if indeed the Oklahoma City Thunder lose this series, that tonight we're not looking at him as the problem. If Russell Westbrook shoots, we need to see Kevin Durant demanding the ball. We need to see Kevin Durant in his face saying, give me the damn ball. We need to see Scott Brooks trying to facilitate that, and Kevin Durant getting on his coach if necessary. He's that kind of dude, that he has that kind of talent, that he could demand that in a moment like this. This is it, man. All of this stuff, the way he was going at a 25-point per game streak and doing all of this stuff, he didn't want any of the attention. He didn't want any of the accolades, any of the adulation. All he wanted was, I'm after the ring. This is what I want. I'm tired of being number 2. We heard him. And then when he didn't want to speak because he had attitude, we heard that too. And it was all for this, to make sure that you keep coming, that you don't get derailed in the first round to the Memphis Grizzlies. Kevin Durant has got to show up tonight. And he's got to make sure that if Oklahoma City does lose, then nobody's looking at him. We're saying, Russell Westbrook, you messed this up. Scott Brooks, you messed this up. This cannot be on Kevin Durant. He has to show up tonight.
I agree with you, and then some. And I will preface what I'm about to say by predicting he will show up tonight. Okay. I think Kevin Durant will have an MVP caliber game tonight, and I believe the Thunder will win in the grindhouse and get this back to Oklahoma City for a Game 7. Now, back to what has not been Kevin Durant over the last 4 games. Just think about this. The runaway MVP, the man who 41 straight times during the regular season scored 25 or more points. Last 4 games from the field, he shot 37%, while during the regular season, he shot 50.3. Last 4 games from three-point range, 26%. He made 39% during the regular season. From the free throw line, last 4 games, 72.7%, 87% during the regular season. What is happening to Kevin Durant? Tony Allen is partially happening to Kevin Durant.
Partially.
Not only is he basically, quote-unquote, in his jock, he's in his head. And Kevin has admitted he's maybe thinking a little too much about the bulldog defender. I'm not sure there's a better perimeter defender defender period than Tony Allen is. You want to talk about toughness personified, it's Tony Allen. But Stephen A. Smith, we've had Tony on the show. You know him. I know him a little bit. He's listed at 6'4". I'm not sure he's 6'4". I'll give him 6'3.5", maybe. Kevin Durant is listed at 6'9". I'm going to give him 6'10", because he sure looks 6'10" to me. Okay, help me out with the math here. Let's do 6'3.5" versus 6'10". What is that? 6.5, maybe 7 inches he's got on him? And he never posts him up one time? You are fond of saying that Kevin Durant can pull up from 30, right? How many times have you said it on this show?
Not one.
Well, that's about all he does now is pull up from 30.
Yep.
Do you realize this past regular season, this year's regular season, he shot 157 more three-point shots. He attempted 157 more than he attempted 2 regular seasons ago in the same number of games. Wow. Plus 157? So now you're a three-point shooting artist at 6 feet 10 inches tall? You got to be better than that. You got to post. And again, it's hard for me to snap my fingers and say something you've never worked on or practiced. Tonight, we're going to run plays for Kevin to post up Tony Allen. Well, I don't know. You better do something different or you're going to be out of the playoffs tonight. And it started, let's just say it hit bottom in Game 4, Stephen A. Kevin Durant, runaway MVP, goes 5 for 21, 1 for 7 from 3. And it got so bad down the stretch that Reggie Jackson saved the day. You know this and I know this. He scored 17 in the fourth quarter in overtime because Kevin just couldn't do it and his partner Russell couldn't do it. So all of a sudden, this past Game 5 back in Oklahoma City, Kevin makes a 3 that ends caps off a 27-6 run, gives them the lead with 6:46 to go, and then they make him a decoy. They put the MVP in the corner and started calling plays for Reggie Jackson because Reggie had saved one day, and they said, Reggie, save another day. Really? Kevin Durant was a decoy for the last 6:46 before it went to overtime? Mm-hmm. Wow, it has come to this for the runaway MVP, Kevin Durant.
I'm going to tell you how it looks. Skip. When you're going up against a shorter dude who can really defend, you appear tentative to put the ball on the floor.
He's afraid to, I agree.
When Kevin Durant puts the ball on the floor and he's driving, he looks scared. It's like he looks more afraid of making a turnover than he looks confident in making a shot.
6 last
He's preoccupied.
Game, 6 turnovers,
because Tony Allen has gotten in his head.
He has.
He's made him a bit hesitant and reluctant to dribble the basketball.
Yep.
I don't blame that entirely on Kevin Durant because when you're that lengthy, you know, even if you're low dribbling, it's high compared to somebody shorter than you. So they can really disrupt your ball handling, and that could be problematic. And if you all up under them, you can't get the kind of leverage you want in the legs under you to really pull up. There's a lot of explanations to this. But in the end, it comes down to Scott Brooks stepping up and helping as a coach. It comes to Russell Westbrook winning his matchup and creating enough havoc to create open shots for Kevin Durant.
Right.
But it also comes down to Kevin Durant being assertive enough to make sure they understand you had damn well better get me the basketball.
Okay,
He's got to do it.
So Stephen A. Smith, give me your insight on what would happen if Kevin Durant tonight, even once or twice, anchored down in the low block and said, give me the ball, caught the ball, and turned and shot over the 6'3.5" guy.
Skip, I hear where you're coming from, but he's so skinny. And Tony Allen is so strong. You got to remember, so much down in the low post is about legs. And if you look at Tony Allen and his strength and his leverage going against somebody like Kevin Durant, who's incredibly skilled, but not in terms of physicality, even though he's stronger than he looks, he doesn't have the strength of a Tony Allen.
I don't know.
That's a hard thing. You got to still be able to do it to some degree. Like you remember Jack Sickman, how he used to catch it and just keep the ball high, pivot, and shoot? Maybe doing something like that. But you got to figure out something because if Kevin Durant loses this series,
oh boy,
and it's by playing this way, I got news for you. There's nothing else to talk about. I mean, Kevin Durant can average 40. So what? You keep losing when it counts.
Okay, so who you got tonight?
You know something? I really don't know.
Wow.
Wow.
Right?
I really don't know.
I think I got the answer then.
I'm being honest. Seriously.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't know what Oklahoma City team is. Oklahoma can beat this team, but Memphis can take them out, Skip. Memphis can take them out.
Katie, I hope you're listening. We hope you're listening.
I don't know.
Skip Bayless,
Kevin Durant shows up. Oklahoma City wins this series.
Yeah, well, that's what Skip Bayless, you got Kevin Durant.
I got Kevin Durant in overtime.
You got
for
him
the
in
fifth straight game.
All
It's
right.
got to go to overtime. They all go to overtime.
This ain't going overtime.
It's not going
this ain't
to
going
overtime?
What makes the Indy 500 the greatest spectacle in racing?
We are playing. Everyone in the grandstands are on their feet. You're now the winner of the Indianapolis 500, my friend.
The Indianapolis 500, Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ABC.
Commissioner Silver and the NBA leadership have set the standard for how professional sports organizations should act in the face of racism. I wonder today, Madam President, how the leadership of the National Football League, the NFL, that money-making machine, I wonder if they've taken notice of the NBA's decisive action. How long will the NFL continue to do nothing, zero, as one of its teams bears a name that inflicts so much pain on Native Americans? It is untoward of Daniel Snyder to try and hide behind tradition. Tradition? That's what he says in refusing to change the name of the team. Madam President, tradition? What tradition? A tradition of racism is all that name leaves in his wake. Mr. Snyder knows that in sports the only tradition that matters is winning. So I urge Daniel Snyder to do what's morally right and remove this degrading term from the league by changing his team's name.
Now, Senator Harry Reid is from Nevada. Long has he supported a Redskins name change. You've heard his reasonings. Stephen A., I'll give it to you. Do you agree with his take?
Well, how can you not?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that considering the noise that has been made by some Native American groups who have highlighted the name Redskins as being racial and racially offensive, there's no way to say it. I think Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid was on point in saying what he said. Usually, I'm not inclined to endorse and co-sign on politicians getting involved in such issues simply because it certainly provides a little bit more camera time, which they never seem to dislike. And they seem to have situational ethics from time to time, to be quite honest with you. But that doesn't mean that they're wrong, that they're devoid of the passion that they express at particular moments that they elect to do so. And I think when you look at the Senate Majority Leader speaking on this, since he has been a longtime supporter of a name change for the Redskins, it seems to be consistent with his mode of thinking over the years. And as long as there's no hypocrisy involved in it, that it is consistent with things that he has said in the past, if he saw this as an opportunity to pounce on the NFL, as a way to get things rolling in that direction so the Redskins name can ultimately be changed, then I have to give him credit for the consistency that he attached to it. And I have to applaud it.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. This is tricky. These are two very different situations when we try to compare the Donald Sterling issue with the ongoing long-term Redskins nickname issue. And I'm not sure I can compare the two because obviously Donald Sterling's private comments were so appalling, so in our face, in your face, in your face. Right. They were right there in literally black and white for all of us to see and also hear. And as you kept pointing out, Stephen A., it was such a flashpoint because it just hit you between the eyes. Something had to be done immediately. Yet, with Dan Snyder, can I immediately call Dan Snyder a racist?
No.
No, I can't go there because by fighting to preserve what I consider to be obviously a racist nickname, just because he's fighting to preserve the tradition of the Washington football team, it doesn't make him a racist, but is it covertly practicing racism? Yeah, it is. It is. It's covert. It's not overt to me, but it's sort of covert. It's certainly in the face of a lot of Native Americans that I've read and heard from. So now we're down to, let me ask you a question, Stephen A. Is it fair to say the Native American community in this country doesn't have near as strong a voice as the black community does?
It's very fair.
Yes.
Okay. So
it's fair to say the Native Americans don't have nearly as strong of a voice in the American community as any ethnic group.
Thank you. Okay. So I feel for them, and we both have fought for months on this show. It's time to change the name. But now when we compare the situations, we hear the senator talk. Well, does this mean that other owners should now threaten Dan Snyder with expulsion from the NFL? I don't think it'll go that far, but could they apply a little more private, subtle, but powerful pressure? I would hope so, just in light of what they've seen. Again, it may be an apple and an orange here, but yes, what could they do to somehow penalize Dan Snyder for keeping the name? Could they take something away? I have no idea, but I'm happy we're having the conversation, and I'm happy that the senator brought it up, and I'm happier that all those NFL owners have to sit back and ponder what has just happened.
Well, that's the big point.
Yeah. Here's the deal.
Yeah.
I believe it was May 1999. Daniel Snyder purchased the Washington Redskins. He paid $800 million. It wasn't an expansion franchise. It was a franchise that was well known, that he was able to get for $800 million, which at the time was a record deal. And why was it? Because the name Redskins meant something. Because Jack Kent Cooke owned it for years. It had been the name of the franchise, I believe, since the 30s or the 40s. And the reality is very, very simple. Nobody can look at Daniel Snyder in this particular equation, as far as I'm concerned, and draw any kind of comparisons to Donald Sterling. The problem that I have with Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is that in his zest to pounce on these issues, in order to get the name change, tacitly, indirectly, what you did was jumble Daniel Snyder into the same bowl as Donald Sterling. And I respectfully disagree with that.
Yep.
Daniel Snyder is a businessman. He purchased a team that already had its name for decades. And even though there was noise geared towards Jack Kent Cooke to change the name, and he had refused to do so as well, I remember the late, great George Michael, my friend and mentor. I love him dearly. God bless him. I miss him. He interviewed Jack Kent Cooke, and he said, hey, you know, this is what the people want. What's the problem? Jack Kent Cooke said, I ain't changing anything. That was his position as well. And obviously there were people before him that was their position. And Daniel Snyder engaged in a business deal. The name Redskins obviously is a marketing bonanza for him. And he's looking at it from the perspective of a businessman that doesn't want to end up losing out because of it. As abhorrent as we may find that, as repulsive as it may be in the eyes of some, you got to understand that it existed long before he arrived. And to his mind, very little was said about it.
Yep.
I've seen politicians coming to Redskins games, watching this team play, never saying a word about them.
Sure.
And having no problems with the chants and everything else. So Daniel Snyder's like, y'all gonna mess with this now that this is my investment?
Yeah.
That we're worth over $1 billion, even more considerably? He's got a problem with it. I think he's wrong. You think he's wrong. There's a level of sensitivity that he should exercise. And it should matter. And he should find a way to do whatever needs to be done. And still, because his team is still going to be profitable, especially the way the NFL is today. But I do think it's wrong, even though I understand where Senator Reid is coming from. And I'm not accusing this of being his intent. I do think that it's kind of bad that somehow, some way, Donald Sterling's transgressions
are linked.
have now been lumped in with Daniel Snyder. I think that's not right.
I
don't think that's right.
But speaking of business and bottom line, until enlightened sponsors start pulling their ads from the National Football League and the Redskins in particular, I don't think anything will happen. You're going to have to hit them where they live at their bottom line.
Yeah.
According to ESPNNewYork.com's Ian Begley, a source told him that Phil Jackson met with Carmelo Anthony this week for dinner in New York City to fill him in on his relationship being Jackson's relationship with Steve Kerr, discussed his background as well. According to a source, they also discussed, obviously, Melo's free agency. Stephen A. Smith, how would hiring Steve Kerr impact Carmelo's decision?
It remains to be seen, to be quite honest with you, because Steve Kerr is an incredibly respected basketball mind. He knows the game. He's a champion multiple times. And on top of it all, he's proven to be a quality executive from his days in Phoenix from 2007 to 2010, I believe. So it's not like there's anyone out there who doesn't have respect for him and who doesn't believe that this dude is qualified to do a multitude of jobs on the NBA level. But when you're talking about a head coach, you're talking about somebody having the ability to galvanize troops, inspire them, motivate them, and to be that day in, day out kind of guy over 82 regular season games and beyond. My initial inclination was that Steve Kerr doesn't strike me to be that guy. When I see him, I see an executive. I see somebody who is an overseer of a franchise as opposed to the guy that's hands-on and in the muck and grind on a daily basis. But one would have thought the same thing about Jeff Hornacek. Look at the job he did in Phoenix this year, which was nothing short of outstanding as far as I'm concerned. Even if they didn't make the playoffs, they were incredibly impressive throughout this year, and I give Jeff Hornacek a lot of credit for that. And so because of it, you've got to look at it from that position, respect the fact that he's a leading candidate for the job because Phil Jackson wants him based on their relationship and what they know about the game of basketball. And you got to trust Phil Jackson because, quite frankly, he's earned our trust. The flip side to it, however, is if you're Carmelo Anthony, you're looking at the roster. That's what it's all about. What kind of roster can you give me? If I go to Chicago, I believe Derrick Rose is coming back. I know Joakim Noah and Taj Gibson and those boys are going to be there. We're instant title contenders. If I go to L.A., I know Kobe's going to be there for the next 2 years. I know they're going to have a top draft pick. Plus, they have $26, $28 million in cap space. So I'm not the only dude they can get. There are other people they can bring on board as well. And it's L.A. There are better options. And so it's really about Phil saying, well, you know what, if you could take a pay cut, I'm like, first of all, what's that going to do for next season? There's but so much to me that's going to do because the Knicks are already capped out. And number two, and more importantly, after the job that Carmelo did this year, which was arguably his best season as far as I'm concerned with the load he had to carry, the nerve of anybody to come to him talking about he needs to take a pay cut. He's about the only one that doesn't deserve a pay cut. So it's a tough call. I don't know, but I do know that when told of Steve Kerr, Melo didn't have a problem with it, but he didn't jump for joy either.
Intriguing. My 2 cents. If I'm Carmelo Anthony right now, I put far more weight in having Phil Jackson running the Knicks than I put in Steve Kerr coaching the Knicks. I don't know this, but I'll throw it out. Would Phil handpick Steve Kerr merely to be an extension of Phil's mind on the bench, with the possibility that Phil would come down to the bench at some point, 6 months, a year from who knows when, and that Steve would be such a disciple of Phil's that he would gladly become Phil's sidekick on the bench? I think Steve Kerr is in such awe of Phil that he would basically just do whatever Phil asked him to do without question. And back to our point, I think we've discussed this before about Steve. I know him a little bit from my days in Chicago. You may know him better than I do. He is such a nice, polite man that it's hard for me to view him as a head coach. Phil Jackson has edge to him. Phil Jackson, because I've seen it behind closed doors, can lose his temper. Phil can strike fear. I'm not sure that Steve could strike fear. Maybe I'm wrong. And I agree with you. Executive for 3 years in Phoenix? Yeah, I get that. Analyst? He is a tremendous TV analyst. He's one of the few ex-players who can see, feel, and communicate the game on television the way a Doug Collins can here on ESPN. As an ex-player, it's difficult usually to be able to feel it and communicate it if you're a really great ex-player. But in Steve's case, he was a little bit of an overachiever, had a great shot, was there for some huge shots to be made and some big championships. But again, edge to him, head coaching material. And now the irony is, you read reports, maybe it'll become a bidding war between the Lakers and the Knicks for Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr? What? He's 48 years old. He has never coached a single dribble at any level that I'm aware of. Maybe he's coached for his kids. I don't know. But Stephen A., really? Steve Kerr?
Bidding war.
Wow, bidding war? Lakers, Knicks for Steve Kerr? What does the world come to? I'm just not sold, but I would be sold on Phil picking Steve as his, I'm not going to say his puppet, because that's not what it would be, but his extension. That Steve would become Phil's mind, because Steve obviously played in the triangle with the Bulls, on the bench. He could do what Phil told him to do, teach what Phil told him to teach.
Okay.
Okay? So if I'm Melo, I'm looking at Phil. I'm not looking at Steve. And I still think that Melo could benefit greatly. I don't want him to take a pay cut either, but he could benefit greatly with Phil Jackson in Madison Square Garden.
Well, I just think that Carmelo Anthony should be of the mindset, you coached Michael Jordan, you coached Kobe twice.
Right.
How come you can't coach me?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. I agree.
Let's talk playoffs, shall we? Spurs played an incredible game last night against the Mavs. Huh?
Really? I didn't see it.
You
Who won?
The Spurs won.
Oh, good.
Shocking.
I'm still alive.
And you are still alive. Tonight we got 2 closeout games, do we not? Thunder down 3-2 to the Grizz.
Maybe.
Clippers lead the Warriors 3-2.
Oh.
All things considered, Mr. Smith, I'm going to turn it over to you. It's hard to tell. Who's coming out of the West?
It's hard to tell. I ain't going to lie to you. You know, I still think that if you got to bet your money, Skip Bayless, you roll with the San Antonio Spurs, because I think they'll end up winning this series, whether it be in 6 or 7 games. And I suspect they're not going to have to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. But if you're asking me today, Skip Bayless,
and I am,
how do I feel? Based on what I've seen in these playoffs, and the fact that, you know, on a different level, Skip, on a different level, I'll let my emotions rule the day. Skip Bayless, I'm going to go back to what I said in the preseason about the Los Angeles Clippers going to the NBA Finals, a Cinderella story, Skip Bayless, in light of everything that's happened with Donald Sterling, in light of the adversity they had to go through. Even though I believe they are going to lose tonight in Golden State. I told Steph Curry and the crew that I got the series going 7. I think they're going to lose it in the 7th game back at the Staples Center. I'm just of the mindset, Skip. You know, DeAndre Jordan's averaging nearly 14 rebounds and more than 4 blocks in the playoffs to go along with his 12 points. Blake Griffin has been a man. He's averaging 24. Chris Paul is at 18 and 8. It's the 6th man of the year. I told you Jamal Crawford was going to get it. He's dropping about 15. Skip Bayless, I'm just being a little bit emotional. I know, Skip, because San Antonio, clearly, if they don't have to play Oklahoma City, I have no problem with the belief that they could come out of the NBA, they could come out of the West and win, not just go to the NBA Finals, but win it all. But Skip, I'm just gonna play around a little bit. I'm gonna go Cinderella, Skip. I'm gonna go Cinderella. I'm gonna go with the Clippers, Skip, right now. Based on what we've seen in these playoffs thus far, I'm gonna roll with the Clippers, Skip.
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna roll with the Clippers.
Wait a minute. just a week, 10 days ago, you were thundering out the Thunder. You said Thunder Road. Here they come down Thunder Road. You said it's over. Kevin Durant, runaway MVP. He wins it all.
Look, you've seen Oklahoma City. You've seen it. Have the Oklahoma City given you any reason to believe they can win 2 games in a row against Memphis?
No, but I believe they will. I do believe they will. I think they're going to win it in 7 games.
Right. Well, then we can revisit it then. But I don't see it.
Okay, so is this in concrete or is this just for right now? Like,
It's
could
right
this
for right
change
now.
by
Just
tomorrow?
having fun. It's just for right now.
Okay.
Just for right now, Skip. I'm on my Cinderella ride for this weekend. I'm on the Cinderella ride, Skip.
Okay,
Just for
I
right
must
now.
tell you, in all seriousness, even though I don't like you flopping on your thunder pick,
Right.
I do agree with you that the Donald Sterling incident was so powerful. It was so galvanizing, not just for the team and the community, but the black community in general. So many people tweeting, "Go Adam Silver, go." Thank you, Adam Silver. That I agree, this is going to create huge momentum for a basketball team that might start thinking this is meant to be. We have come back together. We are united in a cause. And I get that. And as a Spurs supporter, I fear that. So I don't disagree with your flip-flop here. But I'm going to I'm going to dance with, as they say in Texas, who brung me. The Spurs brung me here, and I'm still dancing with them.
Faithful.
Even though I'm scared to death. I was scared to death of Vince Carter. Stop it, Vince! You took 5 years off my life. Who was that guy last night? He made every shot he looked at. He was 22 years old last night. That Carter, yeah, I know. Good God. Okay, but right now, the reason I'm going to stick with my Spurs is I now have the hottest player in all the Western Conference playoffs. Tiago Splitter.
All right.
You saved my day and my night last night. Tiago Splitter. Stephen A., listen to these numbers. In the fourth quarter last night, Tiago Splitter scores 9 points with 6 rebounds and 4 assists. That's a day's work for Tiago Splitter, and it was in the fourth quarter of a huge Game 5, pivotal, crucial, turning point Game 5. My man Tiago Splitter, who you have shamed on this show so many times before, he came to the top last night. He's now the hottest player in the playoffs, and because of that,
you laugh.
I'm sticking with my Spurs. I need you to give my man a little credit today.
First of all, I haven't gotten on Tiago Splitter since last year.
That's
because
true.
there was a marked improvement with him from last year compared to what it was the season before, which is when I got on him was 2 years ago. Tiago Splitter has improved tremendously. Deserves a lot of credit. But I still get this vibe. It's like my shoulders just shrink every time I watch him score because it's like watching Tebow complete a pass. I'm just like, are you kidding me? But
funny.
you know, it is what it is. You know, and you just accept it. It's like, wow, all right, it happens. And that's what Tiago Splitter did. I know.
I wasn't sure he could dunk, but he dunked last night. It was an and one, and he made the free throw.
Listen, the San Antonio Spurs, to me, are the best team in the West. To me, they could beat the Heat in the NBA Finals. They really could.
Yeah,
listen, the Western Conference is so tough.
Hey,
I mean,
I agree.
Woo!
Listen, I agree they could beat the Heat in the finals, and that's been their, that's their mission from day one this year, to get back to Game 6 and right the wrong. But listen, right now, I'm convinced of this. The Dallas Mavericks, if they were in the Eastern Conference tournament, they would win the East. That's how good they are right now. They're on fire. Dallenbert is playing so big for them. He's causing Tim Duncan so many problems. Rick Carlisle is one of the top, 3-4 coaches in the league.
Easy.
And this is my final point. The reason I'm hanging tough with my Spurs, Tony Parker came back to life last night. To me, and I watch every dribble they play, since March 11th at Chicago, when he scored 16 in the first quarter with 5 assists. I haven't seen that Tony Parker until last night. And remember, his fiance had their baby, it's like now 2 nights ago.
Okay.
And I think an enormous weight was lifted off Tony last night because he was engaged for the first time in about 2 months. He attacked in ways I have not seen. I've criticized him on the show here. I've lamented. Where is Tony? He was back on 3 hours sleep, and I'm just reading this from a distance, but maybe the weight is off his shoulders and he's ready to be that MVP candidate again.
Your fiance is about to give birth to a child. Those days leading up to it's tough, bro. You ain't getting too much sleep now.
Okay.
So, it definitely was a load off his shoulders. There's no question about that.
Okay, so I'm hanging tough with San Antonio to win the West.
Yeah, but
they're gonna have to
I
get
think
through.
we got to watch out for the Clippers.
Who
but
they
not
have to
tonight,
get
though.
through? You don't
Not
know.
tonight.
Maybe Portland. That's going to
Maybe
be
Portland. That's
maybe
gonna
even
be tough.
tougher than Dallas.
Okay.
It could
And
beat
then,
anybody. Out
who knows?
west, man, it's a
It could
crapshoot.
come down to your new Clippers versus my old Spurs in the finals. I don't know.
So, Stephen A., the emotional ride for you is the Clippers. You're going with the Clippers.
Yeah, but if I had to bet my money, it would be the Spurs.
Okay.
But the
Okay, so
emotional
that's
ride
fair.
is the Clippers.
Okay, all right. He's being fair. We still believe in the Spurs. And
Yeah,
apparently, Thiago Splitter's the hottest player
in the West.
In the West.
Yeah.
All right, folks. In the East, the Pacers will try to avoid becoming the 6th #1 seed to lose a playoff series to an 8 seed. The Hawks have a chance to close it out tonight at home. Stephen A., which team has more pressure?
I think the Indiana Pacers have more pressure because if they lose, it will culminate into arguably the most epic collapse we've seen in NBA annals. This team has been pretty much an atrocity over the last 2 months. They haven't resembled themselves in how they looked over the first 6 games. And the residual impact could be players being moved because nobody would be safe but Paul George. And of course, a coaching change. All the pressure's on them right now, and I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even know if they're equipped to handle it. I've lost all faith in the Indiana Pacers. I expect them to lose this series in all likelihood tonight.
I hear what you're saying. I've also lost all faith in the Pacers, but that's why expectations have now fallen for the #1 seed. I think most people expect them to lose probably tonight. I don't, because I think there's more pressure on an Atlanta team that has not been here and done this before. The Atlanta team barely made the playoffs, and all of a sudden it wakes up this morning thinking, uh-oh, we're at home with a chance to close out the #1 seed in the East. And I think throats get a little tight. I think the Pacers might play a little loose tonight. Like, well, we've blown it all anyway. Let's just let it fly. So I'm going to think that the Pacers do what we've seen them do occasionally. All of a sudden, when least expected, they'll win this game. Then I wouldn't be surprised if they lose back home as they've lost before to Atlanta in a Game 7.
Skip, 2 things. If I'd agree with you if the Pacers had not already won a game in Atlanta, but I don't think you beat Atlanta twice on their home court in this series.
Wow.
And especially if you're this Indiana Pacers team, because regardless of what you say, trust me when I tell you, they'll be playing with pressure on their backs tonight.
Yeah, no, I agree. But wouldn't you say that the Hawks have not so great home court advantage? It's not a real loud crowd?
No. Oh, yeah, the crowd's going to be loud. It's going to be loud tonight when they know they got a chance to finish them off.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
The next big thing, the next new kid, the next overnight sensation, the next rookie, one to watch, the next Hall of Famer, the next intimidator, the next 6-time, the next king. Next. Who's next? Let's find out. Names are made here. The History 300 at Charlotte, Saturday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC.